All right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast Classroom Edition. I hope this has served you and served you well. I mean, every single month I sit back and think, okay, this is the special week, right? This is a week where we get to kind of go through the blocking and tackling and really do my best to give you some practical things to go out there, apply in your business, and see your personal sales go up, see the ability to recruit go up. In fact, last month we had Jordan Lowry on that's done a phenomenal job recruiting, really go through what he's doing specifically to recruit. So most of the weeks we go through mindset, and I do my best to get the guests on that are really having massive success to dive into their thought process, belief systems, the way they see things, the way they do things, and unpack all that. But once a month, this is the podcast where we can go through some practical things. And so I'm excited that you've joined. My desire today is to provide you some significant value. And so if you could get on with that expectation that, man, I'm going to get some value, I promise you'll get more value, or you'll get all the value that's on the table for you to get, right? And that might be point one, is like, hey, what's your expectation? So as you come on to any podcast, any training, always have the expectation that you're going to get the most from it, right? When I go into a client's house, I have the expectation like I'm going to have a phenomenal appointment. My expectation is that I'm going to help this client, whatever that they can pay in their budget. I'm going to find that premium, and we're going to make sure that the value's there. They're going to get a plan in place. They're going to protect their family. Or I'm going to go in there. I'm going to find a way to find annuities, IULs, whatever I'm stepping into. My expectation is got to be set at the highest level of success that I can get there. Now, does that always happen? No, it doesn't. But my expectation is always that. And what that leads me to do is this: as you leave that appointment, as you leave that hour on the phones, what you're able to do is have justification that keeps you in line with success, not excuses that take you to more of this perpetual failure. What I mean is this: if I leave the phone calls, right, and I've made an hour of phone calls and I got destroyed, but I expected that every appointment I was going to call was going to book because they sent in a form, they asked for help, everybody needs life insurance. If that's my belief, then when I get off that hour, my justification is like, man, it was just an off hour. Man, that client, I just had a couple clients that maybe I sounded more like a telemarketer than I should have sounded, but that doesn't change the fact that every single appointment or person I call should book an appointment, right? That's what I land on, not, man, these leads ain't any good, right? So the expectation's so good. All right, so that was just my intro. In fact, I wasn't even talking about it, but it popped in my head, so we discussed it. Hopefully it helped you. What we're going to talk about today is standards, right? See, most agents, they've got goals, and you should. In fact, I think it's weird if you don't have goals, right? It's kind of like I was talking to Mike, and he's been in athletics and played at a high level, and his dad played pro ball and stuff, and like they have a goal. If they didn't, that would be weird. Now, most people have similar goals. Like if you're in athletics, the goal is to win a championship. Nobody's like, my goal this year, man, trying to win four games. Like what? Well, I won 2 last year. It's like dude, that head coach would be fired before he hit the scene, man. Like he's fired at the press conference. No, dude, I want to win. I'm trying to win the championship, man. I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. Most people know what goals they want to have. The difference between the goals and the accomplishment of the goals, the stating, the writing down of the goals and actually accomplishing it, it has everything to do with the standards. The top performing teams, they've got better standards, systems, and rituals than the other teams, right? The top producing agents, they have different set of standards. In fact, standards are the specific set of actions that will take you to achieve your goals. All right, so we got to make those specific. The reality is this: when you don't have standards, and I'm going to go through exactly what I've discovered in the past 15 years and from my own experience, but also from being in a really blessed position to talk to and interview and build relationships with really giants in this industry, and what I've seen to be the standards as well. Because I'm sure you've heard it, success leaves tracks. Those tracks are typically the standards. And if you can pick up the standards, you're going to pick up excellence. And so when we look back and unpack why is this important, first of all, is if you don't have standards and non-negotiables as a self-employed business owner, what you're going to participate in is compromise. And compromise will kill you. Compromise kills action. Compromise kills confidence. Compromise kills business, right? Compromise kills commitment. What I mean is this. If I don't have a standard of like, man, I dial every Monday at this time, well, guess what happens on some Mondays when I wake up and I don't feel like waking up? Am I going to be more moved by my feeling or moved by my standard? Well, if I don't have a standard in place, a non-negotiable in place, I'm moved by my what? My feeling. Well, I don't really feel like it right now. And see, when you're self-employed, you have the ability to choose what to do. So you're either going to choose what to do based off of the emotion, the feeling in that moment, or be based off of my commitment, right? And if you're not 100% committed to this non-negotiable and standards that are within your business and what you do in your daily routines, you're never going to make it long term. It's kind of like, who in here is married? All right, how would you like it if your spouse was like 99% committed to you? Like they were 99% faithful. Would you be okay with that? Heck no, right? They're like, it's only been once, like 99% of the days though this year I was faithful. I wasn't messing around. No, you wouldn't be happy about that, right? That compromise you wouldn't be okay with. It would ruin that relationship. And see, when you're self-employed, you're building that relationship with yourself. And so you want to make sure that every action and choice and thought and feeling is in line with building that relationship that says, man, I'm dependable. I deserve to have a harvest. I deserve to have great results because I do what I need to do. Even when I don't feel like doing it, I am committed. I have standards. I have non-negotiables. I live by those. That changes everything. See, if you negotiate with yourself what to do when you feel like doing it, or just negotiate, do I go to that appointment? Do I not go on the appointment? Do I invest in the leads this week? Do I not invest in the leads this week? Do I go on and book 20 appointments? Do I not book 20 appointments? Do I post the ads? Do I hire the recruiter? Do I post on social media? Do I do this or do I not do this? When you negotiate with yourself, you're never going to pull out the other self that's deep within you that's going to take you to these levels that you can't even see quite yet. But if you don't negotiate with yourself and you don't compromise, you'll be able to go out there and eventually live out that potential and see this other self that's within you start to be produced, grow, develop, and all of a sudden down the road you're like, man, I've reinvented myself. I look so much different. I remember my daughter, I got 4 girls and a boy, and my 10-year-old, there was a saying going on where it was like, I don't know if it was like a trend at school. They were like, do you, like just do you, boo. And in fact, my 10-year-old got in an argument with this is a couple years back, my 10-year-old got in an argument with my 15-year-old, and my 15-year-old was like, well, just do you, boo, just like that was her go-to, right? And the thing is this, like I thought, like that's the dumbest thing ever when somebody's like, this is, and I'm not trying to offend you, but if I offend you and you get past and you eventually make a lot more money, have a better life, then you're welcome, right? But like when you're like, this is my truth, like what does that even mean? Like my truth has got to be founded on the absolute truth, right? Not only trying to preach to you, but like there's an absolute truth that you got to go to. If that's not the case, and everybody's got their own truth, right? But there's truths as far as success when it comes to standards of excellence or standards that will produce excellence. Does that make sense? And so I'm trying to create a new me every day because I know how dysfunctional I can be. I know the issues I've got. I know how there's things that I got to work on. And my goals is next year, if I was a year from down the road looking back, that I wouldn't be able to recognize myself because I've progressed. Every year I'm looking to progress. Every year it's like I'm trying to go through like a midlife crisis. My daughter was like, Dad, you're like going through a midlife crisis, like doing all this stuff on social media, and like, what's up with you? Are you okay? She's 15, so that's just what they try to mess with you. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, in fact, yeah, sweetheart, I'm actually trying to go through a midlife crisis every week because I'm trying to reinvent myself. I'm trying to develop, trying to get better, trying to create, trying to innovate, trying to figure out what can I tweak, what can I adjust, how can I up my standards, right? And that's the goal, is to increase your standards. So let's go through some standards of a top producer. All right. The first thing with a top producer that's so essential to becoming a top producer that will squeeze out compromise, that will breed and birth up commitment, is when you say something, it's got to be done. Like if you say it, that's when it's got to be done in your mind. The moment you say it and you know it's what needs to be done, do not compromise. Pretend like it has to get done. In my mind, I would almost trick myself and pretend like, I tell myself like, Paul, you're making, say, $50,000 a month. And let's just say you're working a job. Like who in here would be okay with would be pretty excited about making $50,000 a month right now? Anybody? Okay, so say you're making $50,000 a month. And the boss says, you have to do these things. And there's nothing inordinate, nothing crazy. Would you compromise? No. See, most people don't compromise when they're working a job for the fear of what's going to be taken away. But when you're working for yourself, a lot of times we engage in compromise and don't have those same standards that we can't waver on, these non-negotiables, because we can do what we want to do. We could do you, right? And that's what leads you to end up going back to a place that you didn't want to go to, because you do get this taken away as well if you don't have standards. Like, I can promise you, if you don't have standards, like the odds of this working out is probably 0%. Because you have to have standards and non-negotiables within anything to make it work long term. Does that make sense? All right, so the first thing is when you say it, it's got to be done. If you put it in the calendar, if I say, man, I'm waking up at this time tomorrow, it's got to be done. If I say I'm getting to the office to dial at this time, it has to be done, right? So my first non-negotiable when I got in this business was when I say it, it has to be done. I can't compromise with it. Now, what did that help me do? If I said I got to dial every single Mondays and Thursdays, my first dial is at 7:30 a.m. Well, then my other standard I put in place was every night before, I got to print my leads off or make sure my phone burner's got everything ready to go. I got 2 phones because I had 2 phones. If you don't have 2 phones, a good idea is to get 2 phones, because for one, you'll be more productive. And even if you don't have a crazy amount of higher productivity, which you will, the fact that you know you got 2 phones and the person next to you's got 1 phone, in your mind, you're starting to tell yourself and teach yourself that, man, you deserve to go out there and have that great week. It's no different than when you look at Kobe Bryant and when you hear him talk about like practicing when everybody was eating lunch and getting there early. Like, yes, he built skill because he had more shots, but also he was building up this deserve more factor. Like, I deserve to go out and beat that guy I'm going one-on-one with, because that dude ain't doing what I'm doing. He ain't doing what I'm doing. And because he ain't doing what I'm doing, I deserve to get what he ain't got, which is a championship, which is a victory, which is a win. So get 2 phones, right? But have everything prepared and planned the night before. See, like what I want to have is when it's game day, I'm focused on the game. I'm not focused on preparing for the game. The preparation was done prior to game day. Does that make sense? So the night before, non-negotiables, I've got to have everything planned and prepared and set up. So when it comes to Tuesday morning, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to go, man. It's all set up in front of me. All right, and once it's set, it's done. Now, what that'll help you with is this. Like, you're going to have, and again, everybody's different. But for me, as I got started in this business, I had buddies that were like, dude, like, you going to come over? Let's kick it. The game's on tonight. Now, when they said that, what do you think sounded better? Dialing the phones or watching Monday Night Football? I mean, with all due respect, I'd rather get a root canal a lot of times without any kind of, pain medication instead of dialing. So when he's like, let's go watch the game, and it's your team playing, like, dude, yeah, I want to do that. But if I wrote it in my schedule, that would allow me to squash that feeling of emotion, of temptation, of wanting to go do that and say, nah, man, like, it's non-negotiable, it's standard. So then I didn't have to negotiate with my feelings. The problem is most people die in this business because they're negotiating with their feelings all the time. Stop negotiating with your feelings. It's never going to lead you to the success you desire. It also helped me when my wife's like, babe, we're going to SeaWorld tomorrow with my sister and the family. You want to go? You know what I did my first week? Honestly, got my first week in the business, she said that. And I said, oh, babe, you didn't know? She said, what do you mean? I said, sweetheart, I'm self-employed. I do what I want to do, baby. I'll be there. You better be sure I'm going to be there. And that would kill me if I didn't fix it right away. And I learned the hard way that I have to have these non-negotiables. I can go there if it's planned and I've gone out there and I've executed and hit goals and it's all set in place. I'm not saying you can't do those things, but I had to make sure that if I did those things, it was pre-planned ahead of time. I adjusted my schedule to make sure I did never miss my goal. Does that make sense? It was all set up. All right, the next thing, a standard of excellence for top producers is no excuses. No excuses. So this is kind of how I look at it. Like, if I've got a goal, and I think everybody on here watching this that's in here, like you have a goal, like you're here and you want to get to here, right? And there's a process to be had to cross those paths, to take those steps to eventually get to that goal. But I do believe that excuses, complaining, justifying, blaming, what that does is it casts like quicksand across that gap. So you may still go out and put the activity in. You might still go take that step, but you're stepping and not moving anywhere along the process because of what you've casted. That quicksand keeps you stuck. So I feel like I'm moving, yet I'm not going anywhere. Well, it's because you picked up a ball of chain around your ankle called excuses, blaming, complaining, and justification. And I really realized that early on, that it feels good in the moment, right? But in the end, it causes you to slow down big time on your way to success. Have you guys ever done something in the moment that feels good, but in the end, it doesn't lead you to the success you want? You know what I'm saying? Like for me, like La Casita burritos. You guys on here, you might not know where that's at. It's out here in the high desert. It's a little Mexican place. Dude, those things, in the moment, I love them. Get the California burrito, dude, like it's unbelievable. But about the time I'm done eating it, I feel like I got to take a nap, and I get so bloated, it's like I got an Audi belly button. It just pops out. You know, it's bad in the end. Does that make sense? I wonder what have you done that in the moment it feels good, but in the end it doesn't lead to what you really desire and want. And that's what we have to be aware of building a business, right? So no excuses. And all you have to do is realize, does this thought, does this feeling, does this emotion, is it going to lead me to where I want to go, or is it not? Because in the beginning, it feels good. It eases the pain. These leads ain't any good. It's the leads. That feels good in the moment because it takes it off of you. But in the end, guess what leads you got to call, bro? Them leads. And then you got the other person that didn't pick up the excuse. Instead, his standard was no excuses. And so he reflected, listened to his phone script back, recorded it, was like, wow, I say that? I don't know I said it like that. Tweaked it, adjusted, sent it over to somebody he works with. Hey, can you listen to this? Give me some feedback. They watch it, send it back, tweak this, adjust this. They get on a Zoom dial team. Somebody watches them. They give them some feedback. It's a small tweak, a small adjustment, and all of a sudden they have a better outcome. The other person picked up the excuse though. So because they got the excuse, they don't have to pick up responsibility and figure out solutions. They just hold on to that excuse. So they don't get the feedback. They don't record themselves. They don't reach out. And all of a sudden what they don't want to have happen, they've already made the verdict up that this is what it is because it's an excuse. And then they go out there and find the evidence to support the verdict, and they live a story that they hate and that they don't want to live, but they've created it and don't even realize it. Does that make sense? So no excuses, right? I remember thinking like, leaving a client's house thinking like, dude, nobody could ever sell this client. Ever. And then I started thinking like, dude, how am I going to get better with that? That's like, you know, one of the kids on my soccer team being like, I'm never going to be faster than her, so therefore we're going to lose. It's like, no, you might never be faster, but what can you do to still have the advantage? Well, now it's a solution mindset. Now it's maybe I can take the angle. Maybe I can cut off. Maybe I can run. Maybe I can body up on her, right? Maybe I can step in and slow her down so that way people can come. How can I still have dominion? Does that make sense? And so it's the same thing. I started thinking like, man, Sean, Mike, Matt Smith, somebody could have helped this family. Now, I didn't beat myself up thinking like, oh, poor me, I can't help nobody. I thought, no, how can I get better? Now, the reality is, could you help every client? Probably not, right? There's some clients that they made a pact, like they made a blood covenant. They cut themselves and rubbed it together. We're not going to sign nothing, whatever. Like, you're not going to sell that. But if I treated every client like I could get something, I would typically get better. Does that make sense? So what can I get from this? How can I learn? So this is an important standard of excellence. A standard of top producers is never picking up excuses, always picking up responsibility. The last one when it comes to excuses that I think really messes people up, that the standard of no excuses will help, is even thinking, like I've heard people say, man, I'm not getting enough support, right? And I've heard it from every different platform. And it's like, dude, that's an excuse against your success. Because take it from me, I have the benefit of seeing all these really great, unbelievable leaders and organizations and talented people that supersede my talent and ability, that they're just unbelievable what they've created and done. I have the benefit to see the growth from a high perspective, to communicate, to talk to them. And every one of them, not one of them, has said it's because of support. They went out and succeeded amidst whatever, because there's a ton of support. And those people work the same people that another person say there's no support. No, you're just trying to find an excuse to feel good in the moment because you don't want to step into uncomfortability, responsibility to take this to the next level. It's never about that. Because guess what? You can go get whatever support you want. Most of my days spent talking to different people with different groups and organizations and within my group. Just because they reach out, man, I want some support, I want some help. I'll answer some questions. That's what the whole company has to offer. So the question is, if you have no excuses, then what are you left with? What are you left with is a great question. One of the best questions you could ask yourself with. A question that's actually worth writing down. It's, what must I do to succeed? What must I do to succeed? Man, I feel like I just need some more support community. What must I do to get more support and reach out? Well, then you start saying, well, I could DM that person. I could reach out to that person and say, can you connect with that person? Because everybody's here to support and help. But never taking this victor mindset, but always having this, or victim mindset, always taking this victor mindset that I can go out there and see success. All right, next standard is this. What time am I waking up? Now, I think that, like, over the past year, like, the morning routine has gotten like, it's like the trend, right? Everybody's talking about a morning routine. But the thing is this, as I talk to a lot of agents, as much as it's a trend and most people have heard it, there's not many people actually implementing it and doing it. So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you've got to set yourself up early. So what time are you waking up? That's the first non-negotiable, right? Like, if you're working a job, and a lot of you have worked a job, you knew, like, it didn't matter what day it was of the week when you were working, you got up at a certain time, right? It wasn't like, oh, it's Wednesday, I'm going to wake up 30 minutes later today. No, like, it was structured, correct? Like, it just went off every single morning. And so for being self-employed, it's got to be the same way. You got to structure yourself. Structure and discipline and standards will breed and equal freedom. So what time do you wake up every single morning? What does it look like? What does your first hour look like? Now, my suggestion is, if you're going to start dialing at 7 a.m. or 7:30, and I suggest if most people dial at 8, you should dial at 7:30. Always give yourself the standard of extra mile. That's another standard. I'm always going to do a little bit more. I'm always going to go a little bit further than whatever else I hear and see. Like, most people say dial the same lead 3 times back to back. I would go 4 times. People dial 1 phone, I dial 2 phones. Just a little bit extra, because again, that builds up your deserve more. So if your standard could be the extra mile, that little bit further, it'll make a big, big difference. So whatever time you wake up, my suggestion, man, give yourself a full hour before you got to get moving and doing things. And I'd even say I'd give yourself an hour and 45 minutes, an hour to go through a good morning routine, and then 45 minutes to work out, and then start your day. Because I just know for myself, if I can have my spiritual life right, my relationship, my fellowship with God, and my physical fitness right, where I'm actually working out, eating right, everything else kind of almost works its way out and fits in and comes together. But if I have those 2 things off, it seems like everything else is kind of falling apart and not working out the way it needs to work out. Does that make sense? And so if you get those things right, it'll set you up. But the first hour, have some time, man, where you wake up, you spend some time being grateful, right? You start thinking about, this got to be a standard. Every morning, wake up, today's going to be a great day. Focusing on things that you could be grateful for. Having some pictures in your phone that when you see that picture, man, it just triggers this emotion of just gratitude, right? Like, you don't have to be grateful right now in the moment for exactly what you have, but there's things that you can be grateful for if you really take a look and find it. And if you find that and let that emotion fill you up, and you're filled with love and appreciation, and then start looking forward to more of the things that you want to have happen actually happening, you're more likely to step into those and make this come to fruition. So if you can wake up with gratitude, right? I like to pray. You can meditate. You know, I think prayer is like getting a triple shot espresso. My wife likes, you guys ever heard of that half calf? You actually buy like half caffeine Krager pods. She drinks that. I think that's what meditation is compared to prayer. But you can meditate. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You do both. But have some time to do that. I do the affirmations, right? So I'm affirming the 2.0 version of who I want to be. That's the other standard that you got to have, is starting to speak who goals, right? So most people know what they want, right? We talked about that. The goal is what we want, right? The standard is a specific set of actions to go out there and make that goal come to pass. But a big part of taking those standards and really executing and keeping those as your standards is knowing who you need to be to achieve those goals. Do you need to be more disciplined, more gracious? Do you need to be more focused, less distracted? Do you need to be more influential? Do you need to be more energetic? What do you need to be? Who do you need to be to go out there and achieve those goals you want to achieve? What attributes that you'd want to have more of? Because I promise you, to achieve big goals, it takes a bigger you. So what are some things that you need to develop, tweak, and adjust to elevate up to go out there and see those come to pass? Does that make sense? So you want to have some who goals, not just do goals. Like, I want this, but who do you need to be to make that happen, right? Because if I said, when I was going out there and I helped, you know, my first year, 200 families, when I decided to go out there and help 400 families, the person I needed to be to help 400 families was different than the person I was at 200 families. The 400 family person was more disciplined, was more focused, was more intentional with his time, was more aware of things to tweak and adjust to elevate my game and skill set in the home and on the phones. All those things had to elevate up for me to elevate that. Yes, more leads, yes, more dials, but also those things came with that territory. Because more leads with just as distracted of a person is going to lead me to just as much distraction. Does that make sense? And so the thing is this: good morning routine, right? All right, other thing is this: a standard of always having positive energy. Just being excited. Not being focused on like the one big miss or mistake, the bad phone call, the no-sell, but looking forward with this energy and excitement, like, man, as if I'm walking through it and it's going to happen, right? So positive energy was a big non-negotiable or standard. Another standard is never passing negativity within the team or downline, right? Just never doing it. I never wanted to be the person that would bring people down, because you know it. If you say something that doesn't lead to somebody else's success, now it's one thing if you say it, well, man, you got to battle that lie, because if you believe that lie, it's going to affect you as if it's true. Fix that. But if you open your mouth, man, and you cast a stumbling block in front of somebody else that causes them to trip up, I mean, that's going to set you up for not achieving really anything you want to achieve, right? And so no negativity. Now, do all things happen and they're all positive and exciting? And no. Man, there's days where I'm like, I think I need to call a therapist, right? I need a counselor. Like, this is tough. This day wasn't what I wanted it to be. In those days, reach up. Talk to somebody that's been there. Somebody that works in your hierarchy, that's higher up, manager or VP, and say, dude, listen, man, this is where I'm struggling, man. I just think that I don't know if this could work out. I had this take place, that take place. Let them speak life into you. I can't tell you how many times I was starting to convince myself that I was lucky for 5 years. I was like 5 years in, top producer for 5 straight years. I'd have a bad day, and I legitimately convinced myself that I was lucky for 5 years. And then I started getting scared and worried about, like, oh my God, I'm a fraud. Like, what's wrong with me? Now everybody's gonna be like, dude, you ain't even that good. And I'm not that good. Now how am I gonna take care of my family? Because I ain't that good, and I can't help family. But I would call somebody, and they'd be like, dude, you know how stupid you sound? But if I didn't reach up, now did I call the people on my team and say, guys, this business is short-lived. If you're good now, buckle up. You're gonna get you're going to lose it. I lost it. No, I didn't do that. Is that going to benefit them? No, it's going to hurt them, right? So never passing negative to anybody else or downline or cross on the team. All right. The first phone call, we talked about that. Making your first phone call like at 7:30, make it a non-negotiable. Nothing gets you in your way to stop you from doing that. When to make your last phone call. So my deal was this. I'm going to book my 15 appointments in my dial day, right? I'm going to book my 15 appointments, or I'm not going to leave until 9 o'clock at night. That was a non-negotiable. Now, most of the time, because it was a non-negotiable, it was a standard, do you think that I hit my appointment goal well before 9 o'clock? Because I knew that I would pay the price because it was a standard, not movable. Do you think I hit it sooner or it took me longer because I had that non-negotiable? I hit it sooner. So because I was like, dude, I don't want to down till 9, and it's a standard. It's a part like, that's what my standard is, meaning that I don't compromise, I don't negotiate, it is what it is. So therefore, I was more likely to stick to my non-negotiable dial time of 7:30 first dial. And I would knock it out. And then I put another reward on it. Once I hit my appointment goal, then I would switch and be able to recruit and build my business, because that would get me free from having to sell forever. So it was a standard that was in place. Now, did sometimes I have to dial until 9 o'clock at night? Yeah, if it was an off day. But those appointments that I booked in those latter hours is what ended up saving my week, even if I fell a little short. Now, because it was a standard and I knew I did everything I could, I still felt good at the end of the night. So when I got home at 9:15 on those days, like, I felt phenomenal, right? I felt great because I knew I did what I was supposed to do. I paid the price, right? I was more present with my kids and my wife even at 9 o'clock at night than I would have been at 7, thinking about the fact that I didn't stay until 9, I didn't stick to my standard, and I didn't hit my goal. Then I'm thinking about that. I'm not even fully present, which means if I ain't fully present, I'm not fully making an impact, right? I'll give you another standard. I had this guy today, he said, Paul, like, dude, I got kids, I'm married. My big struggle is like, they're my priority, man. And I want to have a balance, right? And so he's like, how do you do that? And my answer to him was like, dude, my standard was, I wanted to have no extra time left. Every bit of my schedule, especially when I was trying to build something big, and I had my kids, and I didn't want to not be a good husband, and I wanted to be present with the church. I wanted to do these other things. Every minute had to be so intentional. Not that I was always stuck to, not that it was always perfect, but I had a plan, and it allowed me to stay more disciplined in every bit of minutes that I had that was not with my family, so I could earn the right and have the additional time with the family. And because I knew I was doing that when I was with the family, man, I was present with my family. So it wasn't this balancing thing, right? It wasn't this, I'm trying to balance it all out. I think balancing and trying to find balance is just a way to negate the price you have to pay, the uncomfortability and commitment to go out there and execute at a high level. Because what does that even mean? But for me, I knew that my kids, when I'm with my daughter, dude, she wants me to be with her, right? My 15-year-old doesn't want me to go spend 2.5 hours every night talking to her. She'd be like, Dad, you're freaking me out. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are we talking about? But when I'm with her, if I'm taking her to school at 6:30 in the morning, she wants me to be fully present for that 15 minutes where I'm fully engaged. That's what she wants. They want you to be fully present. So I said, dude, that's the thing. You just got to be fully effective. I said, dude, I grew up, my dad was home at 3 o'clock every night. He was a plumber. I didn't have a really relationship with him because even though he was there, he wasn't there. Body was there, but his intentionality and all that wasn't there. And so I didn't have that relationship. But when my 20s, I don't even remember because there was so much going on nonstop, the work and what I was doing. But my relationship with my kids was great because when I was there, I was there, right? And I'd catch myself because it was a standard. And because it was a standard, I was thinking about it all the time because it's a standard. I remember I was in the jacuzzi with my 5-year-old, Perle, and she can talk. Like, I don't know if you got a 5-year-old or if your 5-year-old's like my 5-year-old, but man, she just like, how was your day? And it's not like when you're 15, like, good. Well, what was good about it, babe? I don't know, it was good. You know, it's not like that. They're 5, they're like telling you everything about everything. And I realized I wasn't paying attention, I was looking at my phone. And she's like, Dad. I'm like, what? Dad, can you hear me, Dad? You know, she's like, can you hear me? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. She's like, never mind. Well, anyways, and it starts rambling again. But I realized I got to be present. She needs that. Does that make sense? And I was messing around my phone and not paying attention. But if you could be present, that's got to be a standard. When you're dialing, be excellent at dialing. When you're with your kids, be excellent, present with your kids. When you're planned and you put the kids to bed and you're with your spouse, and be excellent and planful and intentional with how to best produce fruit there, how to best find the connection in the benefit and the growth and the leveling up in that exact specific thing. Because when you're present, you can get 10x done in that same amount of time, because that's exactly where you are and that's where you should be at that moment, because it's planned, prepared, and it's intentional. All right. The other thing is this: always relate to the client when it came to overcoming objections was a standard. That's one of the best sales standards I can give you. So before, I'd get frustrated and I'd want to, arm wrestle with them. They say, well, I want to think about it. And I'm like, why would you want to think about it? Don't you care about her? And it wouldn't work. Does that make sense? But when I started to relate, I realized that I'm always going to relate. And by the way, it works with everything. It works with kids, spouse, everything. Always relating. Like, no, man, I understand 100% you want to think about it. In fact, I think every client that I talk to, and I've been doing this a while, they feel the same way. And what I found is that they really just want to make sure that, for one, it's the best plan for their family as far as the cost. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Is this plan right now, does it seem like it's going to be a good fit budget-wise? Well, yeah, it is. Okay. Second thing is is this important for me? That's the second thing they want to kind of think about it. Is this important for you guys? Yeah, it is. Third thing is do they like and trust me? And I don't have any, you can't offend me, right? Do they like and trust me to help them? And so for you guys, is that how you feel? Yeah. Well, it sounds like the same as most every other client. Those are the things that are typically going on in the head. And it seems to be the fact that, you've kind of already got those answered. So the next step is seeing we could even get you qualified, because they actually got to think about a yes or a no for you. Grab your driver's license, we get you qualified. But always relating to them. Always connecting first. The other non-negotiable is door knocking. If I'm in the field between appointments, I've already got my leads prepared and printed out. I'm ready to door knock those between appointments. So I know I'm going to be in this location, so I'm trying to maximize my time. I want no extra time left. That was a non-negotiable. So between appointments, door knocking. The other thing is, if I miss my appointment goal on Monday, on Tuesday, I'm finding every bit of time to book same day appointments. So if I've got 2 or 3 left unbooked, if it's a later appointment, I'm dialing between appointments. I got the leads that I need to call. I'm trying to fill in same day appointments. Or if I got one iffy appointment, I'm double booking that appointment, right? There's no extra time left. Now, do you think when you sit with that client, when you're running the appointments, that you're more likely to help that family because you went out there and you've already been paying the price, man? You've been nonstop focused. You're in the zone. Man, when you're in the zone, are you more likely to make the shot or miss a shot? You make the shot, man. If you can get, and that's what, if you can stay in the zone, you got to worry about getting in the zone, right? So if you're nonstop about that, and that's a standard, you're gonna increase and see better results and all these other things that are not even directly tied to the very standard that you're stuck to, which is just making sure if I miss my appointment goal, I'm dialing on the way to the appointments, right? Everything else will produce better fruit. So that's a non-negotiable, is door knocking, printing off leads, making same day appointments, making sure you're stacked up, right? The other thing is dial time or drive time, having that planned out. That was a standard. Before so if I had 8 appointments on Tuesday, right? It's kind of like, it's like waking up, that's the best feeling, because now you're just waking up and you just know you got to go show up. Does that make sense? Like the work, the money is made if you're going face to face, right? Is made on Mondays and Thursdays. It's made on dial days. That's why it's so important to have non-negotiables and standards set on those days, because if you don't, it's going to really shake and hurt standards on the other days. You're going to have to pick up a lot more and do a lot more on the other days. But when I could wake up, man, and I got 8 appointments, it's like going to Disneyland. It's like I just got to show up. So on Tuesday, if I got 8 appointments, right, I know how much drive time I've got. And so because I wanted to produce as much time with my family as possible, I knew that every minute I was away from my family, if I could maximize that, that would give me more time. And that's what kind of helped me stick to my standard, was not just say I'm doing this for my family, because I am, and I think a lot of you guys are too, But my question was, if I'm doing it for my family, how can I go out there and still have more time to spend with the family? Well, every minute I'm away from the family, let me spend that and spend that well. I want net time with the family. Does that make sense? So what I would do is say, between these appointments, I'm going to be calling this many resumes and trying to interview this many people. Or between this one and this one, I got to call these 2 agents, right? I was talking to Mike, and now he's got agents he's working with. So it's like between my appointments, I'm going to call these agents. And what do I believe is the most important thing I could specifically talk to this agent about that's going to elevate their game? Well, man, they really need to get more leads. Okay, perfect. So when I talk to that person, that's exactly what that's going to be. I'm going to talk to them about getting more leads, right? Another standard is having a consequence mindset. And I'll wrap up with a couple of these and we'll tie it up. But it was like, if I don't hit my goal, then I'm going to work on Sunday, right? Now, because I didn't want to have to go work on Sunday necessarily, that allowed me to stick to my standards at a higher pace. So if you're like, I got standards, Paul, but it's hard for me to stick to them. Well, the way you stick to your standards is looking at what does it cost you not to stick to them, right? Like, what does it cost you to not show up and dial? All those different things. Also, give yourself a consequence for not doing the standard. So if I don't do this standard and hit these goals, then I got to work on Sunday. And so there was not many Sundays I had to work, and that's why I screwed up a lot of things, but the one thing I had that was really dialed in was just consistency. Like, I was never number 1 on the monthly leaderboard, ever. I was never top 10 for the month on a leaderboard over a decade, never. But every year for a decade straight, I was in the top 5 producers of the company because of just consistency, because I had these standards where if I didn't hit it, I'd have to go work Sunday. And so I was more disciplined and structured within it. And what that leads to is freedom. It makes you feel fulfilled, excited, consistent, emotional stability, there's continuity. That's how you want it. You don't want to have this high, you let go of your standards because you had such a great month, so I'm going to compromise, negotiate with some things because it was so good, and now the next month you don't have the right results, so now it drops low. You don't want to do all that. To build a really sustainable business, you got to have these standards in place, all right? The other thing is this, being on every podcast live. This was a standard that I didn't really know how much it meant until after the fact. But there was many times because I got on it live and it was in my schedule. It was placed in my schedule, and I would fill my appointments and dials around that. There was many times I heard something on a podcast that helped me in that given day go out there and close deals I wouldn't have closed, book appointments I wouldn't have booked, find annuities I wouldn't have found if I hadn't got on that. So could I have figured it out? In hindsight, yes, but I would have missed those deals. The other thing is, once I found the podcast that served me the best that week, because everybody's in a different spot in this business, right? If I found the one that served me the best, I would listen to that like 7 times that week. In fact, that was my goal, 7 times. I'd fit it between my drive time, or late at night, or coming back from Bakersfield, I'd fit it in. But it was a non-negotiable to listen to that 7 times. And it was every week. And that's how, through that repetition of message, I started to elevate my belief system, my thought process. I mean, I remember driving back from Bakersfield, and you guys ever seen those pilot cars that'll like take you when there's construction? You know what I'm talking about? Like, you gotta follow the pilot car, go around the road, you know what I'm saying? And so it was like going down 395. Anybody work Bakersfield in here? Yeah. Pauline, have you worked at James? So I'm going down 395, they got this construction, and I'm like the only, it's like 118 wheelers and then my Hyundai Sonata, because that was my money maker, bro. I killed it with that thing. So I'm in there waiting for this pilot car. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Man, all I know is next time the thing I hear is some pounding on my window, and I look up and it's a police officer. I'm like, what the heck? I get startled because I was sleeping. And he's like, and I'm staring at him, he's staring at me. He's like, I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. He's like, oh, he's rolled down the window. So I rolled down the window, and he's trying to talk to me, and I'm halfway asleep still. And I don't understand what he said. I can't hear him. He's like, sir, can you turn down your radio? And I didn't realize it, but Shawn Mike was blaring, because that week, that's the one I wanted to listen to. And all you could hear in the background was Shawn Mike, have some respect for yourself, you know, yelling. And he's like, but dude, it was nonstop. It was nonstop, making sure I was feeding myself the right stuff consistently so I could develop the right thought process. It was simple stuff. It was my self-education that I had to have put in place. And it made all the difference in the world to make that difference, to grow and develop, right? See, this is the stuff that will make the biggest difference, right? So as we wrap up, a couple things that I wanted to highlight, I guess give you kind of a call to action. For one, the things that will really kind of help you go out there and keep these standards in place is have your why very, very crystal clear in front of you. Like everybody has a why, but I think sometimes we don't have it in front of us. So even though it's there, if it's not in front of us, it doesn't do anything for us. We have to be thinking about it, right? Over and over and over again. Because when the why's in front of you, then it makes it easier to say yes to what needs to be said yes to, the standards, and no to what you need to say no to, the things that pull you away from the standards that are emotions and feelings of what you feel like doing in that moment. So having a very crystal clear why is essential. Also looking at the trade-off. Understand that every trade-off makes a difference. If you can just stay and dial until your appointments are booked, the trade-off is so much more worth it than you think it is. If you don't feel like going to the last appointment, but you say my standard, which another standard of top producers is, I always go to the last appointment, even if I got destroyed that day and I don't feel like it, or I had the best day ever, I 2x what I thought I was gonna do, and so heck, let me just push it off to tomorrow because I'm running late. You always go to the last one. But look at it as a trade-off. You know, my daughter, Parker, she's what now, 10. A couple years back, you know, we started giving the kids, you know, money for like doing certain things. Like they'll do like a gratitude journal. We'll have this little chart on the house my wife does for like different things they can serve and pick up and help out. And so they started making money. And I had this pizza guy came and I needed some change. And Parker is the one that saves all her money. She's like the structured one. She'll be financially free before anybody I know in the family. But she's super disciplined with her money. So I'm like, I need some change. Now, I had 2 5s and I needed just a 20, right? Because that's what I was trying to tip the guy. So I tell Parker, I said, sweetie, I need your 20, I'll give you 2 5s. Right? Now, back then she didn't know like that a 20 is more than 2 5s. You know what I'm saying? So I go up there and I give her the 20. I'm like, I just need 2 5s. I was like, sweet, give me the 20, here's the 2 5s. You're making $10, you're doubling your money, okay? So I'm like assuming, and she's like looking at me funny. I go down and she's like, Mom, Dad's stealing my money. Screaming. My mom and my wife, I don't know, like if I did something in the past where my wife thinks I have no credibility, she's like, Paul, give her her money back, you know? Like, stop it. And I'm thinking like, but a lot of times we do the same thing. We don't realize that, yeah, we got to give something, what we're getting on the other end is well worth it. Like, she was looking at it like the quantity, right? She got just 1 bill and I got 2 bills. Well, that 1 bill was worth a lot more, right? So when you look at your standards and your schedule and your structure, you got to really take a look at it and say, even though this might seem like, man, something that's tough or I got to push through, but what is it worth? What does that really give you on the other side of it? How much more fruit is produced? What's the value tied to it? And if you look at it like that, it's going to keep you more consistent and committed to doing these standards day in and day out. So call to action is this. For one, first call to action, I hope this has served you and served you well. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this because this might be something that somebody out there, man, they got the talent, they got the skill, they got the potential, but because they don't have the standards, they're falling short. And all they need is a reminder like, man, I need to do this. Let me rewrite my why, my reasons. Let me look at this as a trade-off mindset. Let me put some consequences in place for myself. Let me put some standards in place. And all of a sudden, boom, in 90 days, they look a lot better. So share this. Also comment because you have the ability to win free lead money every single week. And I know that's going to level you up, which that's the whole goal of this podcast. The call to action is this. Everybody on here, just write down your reasons and why. Revisit it again. Like, what's your big chief reasons that are going to drive you to go out there and be committed? Because I believe the lack of commitment is what leads to a lack of potential being fulfilled in this business. Write down your standards. Next thing is write down your standards. So what standards are you going to put in place? What's the number one standard? In fact, write it in the comments below. Like, what's the standard that you're going to put in place this week that's going to lead you to success? Is that standard like man, buying leads consistently. I'm no longer gonna just buy them here and there and just kind of go with what I feel like, because I really don't feel like investing. I'm kind of playing scared. I don't know if I want to take the risk, because what if it doesn't work out? What if it does work out? I'm scared if it does work out. And then just say, this week, my standard is, man, I buy leads on this day, this amount, and I buy leads on this day, this amount. So write down your standards, put it in the comments. Your number one standard that you believe, when you put it in place, is gonna make everything else this week elevate up and take you to the next level. So guys, I hope this helps. I hope it served you well. Make sure to go out there and this week, level up, get your standards in place, and be steady, stay strong, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, bye-bye.
What's going on, everybody? You know what time it is. We're giving away some leads. If you commented on last week's video, which is playing right here, you're automatically entered to win $250 worth of free leads. So leave a comment right down below on this video, right down here, so you can win next week. If you're watching on Facebook or somewhere else, head over to YouTube, leave a comment on FFL West Coast's YouTube video of this podcast, so you can win some free leads. So let's get started. Let's see who won this week. We're picking 4 winners, and the first one is Rosa Nepp. I know I'm going to have to watch this twice so I can listen to something I might have missed the first time. Our second winner is Kaylin Gardea. Be the person you needed when you were a new agent. Our third winner is Cameron McNair. Thank you for the nuggets of wisdom to apply in life. And our fourth and final winner is June Santa Maria. So many takeaways, so many nuggets. Now to put it into action. Guys, it's that simple. Just leave a comment right now. If you're watching on Facebook, just leave a comment right now before this video is over. Head over to YouTube, leave a comment, interact. Let us know how the podcast has affected you positively. It's that simple, guys. Until next time, leave a comment down below. We'll see you next week. Take care.